Poke the Bear is brought to you by PrizePicks and the GameTime app.
And welcome into Poke the Bear, episode 291, presented by PrizePicks. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $50 back when you play, just $5, and presented by GameTime. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $20 off that first purchase. Terms apply. No better way to start the year than going to our two great sponsors, PrizePicks and GameTime. That's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. Connor, what is up?
Evan, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. Doing great. You're in parts unknown, right?
I believe so, yes. That's where Anthony Bourdain ventured. No, I am in lovely Palm Springs, California. It's going to be a nice 74 degrees today. How are you doing, Evan?
Must be nice. I'm not doing as well as that. I don't know what it is outside. I have yet to go outside today. There's some
Not
days
75.
No, I know it's not 75. I know it's windy as hell. It sounds like the window is going to break. But it has the last couple days here, I must say, have not been super cold. It's been like 40s, 50s, which I think New Year's Eve hit like 60. So not awful. It's going to get bad. You can feel it. You can feel we're headed down the roller coaster into some really cold weather like we had earlier in December. But how is California? How is it?
It is lovely. Been here for just a day now, but going to relax a little bit, get some golf in. We'll still be watching the Bruins. We'll see how they do. We're recording this on Thursday, so they're playing the Rangers at 4 p.m. West Coast time, which is
we should say 4 p.m. Eastern, so everybody tunes in at 4.
I will say it is very different. Waking up at so I woke up at 8 a.m. California time, and it's already Gerard Mayo has already spoken. There's a whole lot of stuff going on. You feel like the meme of the guy where he wakes up that's me. Yeah. Just a wall of notifications. So,
well, for me, when I would go out, because I have cousins in California, they're in Laguna Beach, and when I was little and would go out there, I would wake up at 5 a.m. California time.
Yeah.
As a little kid, and then I went out there in college, and I woke up. I got adjusted and woke up at 9, 10 a.m. real quick California time. But that's good for you that you're able to sleep until 8 a.m. California time, because for us that's 11, I think, here. So lots of
waking up to power play groups, waking up to practice lines, all that stuff. So
lucky you. Before we get into the Bruins, I have a Winter Classic thought that I feel like we can kind of digest. I was reading ESPN ranked the best Winter Classics ever. They had this year's as the worst, and I would agree. I'd agree. New Year's Eve, not the same. Wrigley, I'm for Wrigley. I'm down to. Fenway was awesome a couple of years ago, and that was the second time they'd gone to that venue. Wrigley, cool for it. I don't need to see the Chicago Blackhawks. I just don't. I know that's a tired. We've been bitching about the Blackhawks being in outdoor games for a decade now. Probably, honestly, since 2015, when I think they were in that game too against the Capitals.
Mm-hmm.
But they suck. That team fucking sucks. I'm sorry, they blow, and I don't need to see them. The Blues just stomped all over them. I don't know. At this point, to make it different and to make it better, do rivalries, do some new rivalries maybe. But I also say try out new places. We said it last week, but Lake Tahoe was awesome. I know you wouldn't have fans necessarily there. Maybe you could find a way to have a scenic place and build your own stands or something like that. So there are people
just go on Banff, just hammer in these bleachers.
Bring your own chair. BYOB? No, BYOC. Bring your own chair. But I also think we mentioned the Field of Dreams thing that the MLB did. And even if they had 3,000 seats for a game in Tahoe or somewhere scenic, I still think that's sick and people would tune in to watch it. Viewership, I believe, was down. It couldn't have been that high for this game on New Year's Eve. So I like the Winter Classic. I do. I really do like it. I'm not one of those people that bitches about it every year, but I didn't like it this year. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. And again, I agree with you in terms of I like the Winter Classic. I think every year you have the narrative why do they keep on doing this? But they had it at Fenway in 2023, January 2023, and that was a blast. And it's all right, this still does have some staying power, right? And again, not every single one of them is going to be a hit, but I think even look at the way the NHL approached this previous one, right? Where like you had other games on that day. Like it wasn't like its own slate. Like it felt like it was swept under the rug by so many other sports. Like I don't know. It just felt like they didn't even have like their heart in it in terms of maybe they just realized the Blackhawks suck and Connor Bedard is not as good as Macklin Celebrini and shouldn't have gotten all that hype when there's a better guy on the West Coast reviving a shittier roster. But I digress. But also Will Smith's good too. I'll give the Hockey's boys some credit out what they're doing on the West Coast.
Celebrini though has been on a different level this year.
He's insane. I'd actually as a you might not know this, Evan, but I went to Boston University and I have a affinity for the Terriers doing well, both at the college level and the NHL level. I did not think Celebrini was going to be this good out of the gate, but he's just been insane.
Insane.
Yeah. But no, I agree. Like if you're the NHL, you got to think outside the box here. I mean, whether it's different locations, like even more like college stadiums. I know that's tougher in January when you've got bowl games going on and all those things, but
which also interfere with the game itself. That's why they didn't have it on January 1st.
Right. But even like, I don't know, people have mentioned like the Florida Panthers having a game at like the Miami Marlins stadium and people are like, oh, that's stupid. I'm like, no, it's try it. Whatever. Who cares? It's sports. Like, again, like if that's Florida, Tampa, Florida, Boston would be hilarious. That'd be actually a really, really fun matchup. I feel like it will be Tampa, but like if it was Bruins, Panthers in Miami on January 1st, that'd be a blast too. Like, but I mean, like you pick teams that actually have fan bases behind them, right? Like, I don't know, maybe that's why you won't go with like the Sharks for Celebrini or what have you. But like Florida Bruins, Florida Tampa gets numbers on them. You got like to involve some of the Canadian teams. There's a way for you to make this still like a spectacle, especially with the location and the teams you pick. It just feels like this past one, Blues aren't like a lock to make the playoffs, like what have you, don't have star power. Chicago, bad team with like Connor Bedard, who's doing it by himself and is in the midst of, I don't know if you want to call it sophomore slump. He's just surrounded by crappy talent. But it just felt like the league itself just mailed that one in, and you get what you kind of deserve if you're just kind of cruising with a matchup like that. So
Canada hasn't had one in Canada yet, right?
Jeez, I don't even know. Probably not. Probably because Gary Bettman's so averse to the markets and stuff like that. But
they used to have the Heritage Classic up there, like in Ottawa and Calgary, I remember. But they haven't had that for a long time. I don't know if you want to go into the Canadian market and have an outdoor game. I mean, like Edmonton and Calgary would be one. Calgary, obviously, though, like they're sort of teetering. Yeah, I mean, Florida, Tampa, or Florida, Boston, I think of the two. And people go, oh, the Bruins and outdoor games. It's like, yeah, they've been in a bunch, but they've also earned the right to be in a bunch.
They also get numbers, too. They get people watching it, so.
Yeah, like Chicago's original six, yes. And in 2009, 100% deserved to be in it. And some of the games that, I forget the other games, but even in 2015, they were, they'd won 3 cups. Like, yeah, absolutely put them in a game. But like even in 2019, they were falling off. And I think they've been in other outdoor games as well. So they've been in a lot. Bruins have only been, I say only been, but they've been in 3 Winter Classics. That's been it. There's been no Stadium Series games or anything. So if they did Florida and Boston, or even Tampa and Boston, or Florida, Tampa, I think that's a good, do something different, go outside and also reward teams that are good. Don't, I was getting, and I get it. TNT has the rights to the game, but I get and maybe this is just me, but like they go so hard with the Bedsy, Connor Bedard. Here's Bedsy's stick. It's like it's not even his fault, but you're souring people on him because if he had 40 points in 20 games as a second-year player, like hype this kid up. This kid's nasty. But you're right, sophomore slump. The team sucks, stinks, awful bad, and it doesn't, it doesn't even matter that he's that good because the team's so bad. So I don't know. I think there's different creative ways you can go with the Winter Classic. This year just felt really meh. But what are you going to do? Bruins played the same day. Lost to the Capitals 3-1 in Washington about a week after beating them at home. Didn't play awful. Washington is a better team, but still not the result you want to see in a game like that.
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of one of the many we've seen, I think, over the last couple of weeks, especially since Joe Sago's taken over, where it's the glass half full, half empty, right? I think the last time we talked about that was the Oilers game, right? Where the Bruins, that one probably hurts more because the Bruins were in control for a large portion of that game and really did a really strong job shutting them down, and then kind of take the foot off the gas late, lose in overtime. This one, you don't get any points, which probably is more frustrating, but I think the Bruins played a pretty competitive game, right? Like power play was a mess, and we'll talk about that, but Bruins generated a whole lot of quality chances against Logan Thompson. I think the Bruins at 5-on-5 had 13 high danger looks, which I think was their third highest output of the year. So I think the only highest ones were against Vancouver and Calgary on that West Coast trip, on that Western Canada trip. So they've done a better job at generating looks. The first 5-6 minutes of that game, they were putting Thompson under duress. They had a lot of quality looks, a lot of good looks late. Defense as a whole, I think, was actually pretty solid. The lapses were bad, right? Like the first Alexi Poitras goal was not that great, right? In terms of you couldn't clear the puck out. PK was not great. Gave Chychrun way too much time and space to get that shot off. But as a whole, it wasn't like a.
And you kind of need Swayman to make that save too.
Yes, yes. But I think you look at that game, it sucks you don't get any points out of it, but weren't outclassed. Did not look like they were in the same ballpark against a very good team. Washington had 28 block shots, I think. Bruins had 21. It was actually a pretty competitive game that you want the Bruins, kind of like what we said when we were gauging expectations, Evan, of the Western Canada trip. We're well, if you lose 3-2 or 3-1 to Edmonton, you keep it close, then you take steps forward. And again, I'm not viewing it as an overall positive they lost to Washington, but it's frustrating, right? Because I think they played a competitive game, but that inability to finish both at 5-on-5 and especially in the power play, that's where it really looms large when you just need one more goal to change the complexion of that game, get you back into it, get you ahead, what have you. That is still really hurting this team right now.
Yeah, and I also think it kind of continues to place them under that cup contender tier. I know that's not it's kind of Captain Obvious, but they continue to show why they're a middle of the pack playoff team and middle of the pack team in general. I want to get to that power play stuff because that continues to be an issue. But first, PrizePicks, best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks because it's playoff time and it's now or never. Don't miss out on the last few weeks of football action with PrizePicks, the best place to win cash while watching the playoffs. You won't be watching the Pats, but you want to get, I always say, you want to get into other games. You want to get into the Chiefs or the Bills, or maybe you really like the Detroit Lions. You like their chances. This is a good way to get into it, to get into the game more. And you can now win up to 1,000 times your money on PrizePicks. PrizePicks also offers a MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. In terms of the Bruins, tough stretch coming up. Although I will say we're recording this Thursday afternoon prior to the game against the Rangers. Rangers are horrific. Horrific. We will get into that. But maybe tonight's the night the floodgates open for the Bruins and you feel, David Pastrnak, more goals or more points. So never a bad thing. Never a bad thing at all. So download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Run that game. Imagine if we had PrizePicks during that 22-23 season. All right, David Pastrnak, more every night. But have it this year. So not as convincing an offensive output. But again, there's time on ice, there's hits, all that stuff to make the games a little bit and a lot of bit more fun. Power play. Bruins made some changes against going into Washington. Didn't work. And then the power play lines in New York. So this was Thursday morning. Power play 1, McAvoy, Pastrnak, Lindholm, Zacha, Marchand, which is exactly the same power play unit that has not been working all year. And then that second unit, Lowry, Wallstrom, Geeky, Coyle, Brazeau. I don't know, man. It just ain't working. It's just not working. And, we've put a lot of blame on McAvoy at the point, but I also think a lot of other guys need to produce better too. And I think it's also just changing it up and leaving it for a bunch of games to try to get them to get some chemistry? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to like view the way like that power play operated. Those two new look ones on whatever day it was. Jesus, Tuesday, New Year's Eve.
Today feels like a Monday.
Yeah.
Like
yeah, it makes absolutely no sense to what the days are. But Tuesday against the Washington Capitals, the way especially that second power play, if you want to even call it that, I made the mistake after that second power play. I don't generate any shots on goal, didn't have any momentum, and they were kind of carrying play for the previous 3-4 minutes at 5-on-5 in that second period. Get the power play, get absolutely nothing, and kind of just go out with. I don't think they got the next shot on goal until I think like 30 seconds into the third period. And I tweeted like something like, "Well, that didn't look like a Bruins power play," and all my replies were like, "Yes, it did. Like that looks exactly like how the Bruins power play has been this year." And I was like, "Touche."
You're right.
So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like the power play, I think is breaking my brain, Evan, because like I can see the argument of like just putting out your best players and just being like figure it out, but like, is that a result of like them switching things up of how they're approaching things? Like I think like that personnel on that first unit, like the traditional first unit, is good enough to be hell 18th in the league, right? I think you take 18th in the league right now. I think they were 14th, whatever, last year. And they started off really hot and then kind of slowed down as the year went on. But the talent is there. It's just I think I need to see them change things up, like whether that's like moving Pastrnak around, having be more mobile with the puck, and have the opposing PK kind of guessing or out of sorts as to not thinking that they have to just wait for the one timer from the left circle. Whether it's getting Zacha more involved, at the bumper position, whether it's putting or Lindholm rather, putting him at the bumper, getting him involved. Zacha, at the net front, whether it's operating kind of behind the net, more low to high plays. There's, the talent is there. I think so I'm not surprised to see Joe Secco go back to that group against this Rangers team that is admittedly pretty bad. But if you are going to go back to the group that you viewed going into the year as the one that's going to have you, operating at a pretty high level, got to change things around. Like way too stagnant, way too, Sacco mentioned on Tuesday, like way too far away from the net in terms of their passing, playing on the perimeter. Like you got to change things up with that group because they have the talent to take over. They should have the chemistry between some of those guys at least out there. But if you're going through the same 3-4 plays that we know they're going to run, if we know they're going to run them, I think the hockey players paid a couple $1 million, and the coaches and the video coaches are well aware of that as well, and spend a lot of their hours devoted to taking away those looks. And you've seen it so far this year. So, again, not surprised to see Sacco go back to that grouping, but you got to change things up to what you're throwing at the opposing PK to get some looks there.
I think the biggest thing is I don't think you hit it with that first unit. Those are probably the 5 guys you want out there. Like if you're in a 6-on-5 at the end of the game, those 5 guys are 5 of your 6. The tough part is, what are you running? So typically, if I'm not mistaken, they run an overload and they stick Pastrnak on the other side as the one-timer. And as we've said many times, teams have figured that out. And the Bruins have not figured out a way to go around that. Now, when we do those Bruins post-game shows in the playoffs, Carl Corzini always brings a whiteboard. And he would draw up, he'll draw plays or he'll draw forechecks or whatever. Stuff that is past, our plebes' brains. But I was sitting here kind of drawing out, if they're going to stick with an overload, how you would do it and change it up. And one thing I think is maybe you just move Pastrnak off that one-timer thing entirely. You could put him at the point and have him be sort of the quarterback, and you move McAvoy. McAvoy doesn't have a bad one-timer, and that could be your sneaky weapon. And then you put Lindholm in the bumper, and you have Zacha down low, and you have Marchand on the half wall. So as the one-timer, if you move to the other side of the ice, he's the one-timer on his off wing. Or what about Zacha at the point? I don't know. I think we're at the point where you got to get a little crazy. Zacha's a good passer, good distributor, good with the puck. You move
just hammering shots at that point. He's got a good shot.
Dude can finish. But I also what if you put Pastrnak in the bumper spot and you put McAvoy out far for the one-timer and you put Lindholm down? Do a little bit of different things. Show other teams different looks. And, even if there's a way for you to this sounds insane, and I don't think there is a way for you to do this. But if you had Pastrnak start out as like the guy quarterbacking things at the point or in the bumper, and you move the puck around so well and guys are moving that you end up with Pastrnak getting open for a one-timer. Like, there are things you can do, and it goes back to they're too stagnant. They are too stagnant, and I don't know. I mean, obviously, look, Pastrnak makes $11 million a year. He's your best goal scorer. My guess is he wants to be the one-timer on the power play. Does he look at it as a sign of disrespect if you're moving him off of that? Maybe, but I also think you got to get this power play going. And if that's what you have to do, and you've got to change where you're putting him, that's what you got to do. And I'm for this. They need some drastic changes here. And Sacco mentioned it when he got hired, when he was like, look, we can't change everything today. It's been over a month now. Well over a month. So like, now's the time where you sort of want to change things up here, get things going. The Zacha thing at the point, I don't hate, because I don't, Zacha's good down low for sure. But like, as a distributor up top, I wouldn't be opposed to it. So yeah, something a little different. You have any big ideas to switch things up?
Dude, I mean, everything you kind of mentioned, like I do believe in terms of that 5-man unit, in terms of the personnel out there. But yeah, I think things just need to change in terms of just the looks you're getting. And like, yeah, whether it's Zacha up there, whether it's like having Pastrnak be the quarterback and having the puck on his stick. And, again, if he's the one who's moving with the puck, it's going to make the entire PK structure change to try to account for what he's doing. If that means, he moves down the half wall, passes it to Lindholm in the bumper, and all of a sudden, like, Pastrnak gets open, or you're getting guys more, like, as much as you look at like the Bruins power play when they were routinely a top 5 unit, when you had guys like Krug and Marchand and Bergeron and Pastrnak, what have you, a lot of those plays finished with like usually Pastrnak at the left circle with a goal or Bergeron at the bumper, but like it's almost like you need one of those like the NHL tracking things. Remember when they had the tracking data and like this is going to be revolutionary, and then it kind of sucked. Yes. Like I would just like to see like the 2018-19 Bruins power play of just like tracking movement to see how much these guys moved around, because like I think having that where guys are so unpredictable on the ice, not knowing where that quality chance is going to come from, and yes, usually ended with one of those two guys finishing the play, but it came off of a passing lane opening up or soft air to the ice opening up, because all of a sudden Krug's at the half wall when you're expecting him to fire in a shot from the blue line. It's Marchand moving down, to the other elbow or what have you. It's, a guy like DeBrusk or someone retrieving a puck at the net front, and they have the ability to cash in down low as well. Like there's so many ways for that team to, when these guys are moving and being unpredictable, that listen, there's only 4 guys on the ice on the PK. There's only so much these guys can do. And if you're a team matching against the Bruins right now, you can operate a little bit of risk because it's probably going to end up going to Pastrnak. So you have guys more catered towards that end of the ice or that side of the ice, taking away that shot. You're in a good spot. You live with the potential for, what was that like that great play? It was like Lindholm and Marchand, that kind of tic-tac-toe power play goal. I think it was in Western Canada. And that was like a shock in terms of them playing off something like that. Right now, if you're an opposing PK unit, you're probably like, we'll live with that because we know they're not going to do that much. If we account for Pastrnak, like you need to change, you need to change things up to get that group going, because the talent should be there. Maybe they're not a top 5 power play unit anymore. I think we've all accepted that. Man, where would this team be if they were 15th? If they were average in the league.
It keeps going back to that of like just be league average.
Just be average.
Exactly. But you know what isn't average? You know what is top of their game?
What's that?
Game Time. It's our friends over at GameTime. The NFL playoffs are coming up, and while the New England Patriots are not in it, there are lots of playoff games around the country that will be highly, highly watched. Great games. NFL sometimes struggles with, the matchups of mid-tier teams, but when the playoffs come around, all the matchups are really good and fireworks can happen. And when you go, you can make fond memories. I'd also say you can make fond memories going to an NHL game. Bruins will be home again soon. Go get some tickets there. And again, you can do that with GameTime, because GameTime has a new feature called GameTime Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier, because it filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets to find the best value. I'd also say we're entering that time in January and February and a little bit of March where it's like that post-holiday thing sets in, and it's just sort of a dead part of the year. And sometimes the games on TV aren't as great. You know, you have a Bruins like Wild game or something like that. I don't think the Wild come to town anytime soon, but like if it's a game like that, it's better when you're there. It makes it more exciting, something to look forward to, something to do with friends and family. And that's why you have Game Time. Again, Game Time also has Game Time picks, which, you know, the curation makes it easier. All-in pricing. I love this. Toggling this feature shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Connor, what time is it?
Game time.
When does Matt Poitras get called up? When's this happening?
You have to imagine it's pretty soon, right? Like, I mean, that's what we said. We also were like, oh, it could just be a paper transaction for Fabian Lysell. And sure enough, he has not played since that first game as well. You do feel like it's got to come at some point, right? I mean, you're looking at, especially with that grouping, like that third line desperately needs some more playmaking, right? In terms of guys pulling their weight. And that, again, I even think the third line, the Frederick, Brazeau, Kepke line against the Capitals was pretty good. Like, I think Brazeau had a really good game. He had obviously that bounce led to a goal minute 21 in, but he had like 4 or 5 high danger looks off of, again, just playing his game, playing at the net front. But I think the lack of playmaking, the lack of skill is evident on this team. So I'm waiting for the day that both him and Lysell get called back up. I still think Lysell, you need to give him a longer look. I think Wallstrom's getting back into the lineup on Thursday against the Rangers. See what he can do. It has not been very encouraging so far, but I think it has to be, especially when you look at where this team is at. And what I'm looking at when you see this schedule and you got like the Panthers coming up, Tampa Bay twice, Toronto, I'm like, you need like some extra firepower to get past some of these teams. I could also see the Bruins be like, these are some heavy, tough teams. We don't want to put our young guys out there. It's like, well, all right. But again, I still think there's just way too much dead weight in terms of where on this forward core where guys are just not doing it nearly enough to
it's a heavy, tough league. That's what I keep going back. It's a heavy, tough league. Every team is heavy and physical and tough. Yes, some are a little more than others. But like, if you want Fabian Lysell to be something in the NHL, sorry, dude, you got to play Washington. Sorry, dude, you got to play Tampa. You got to, like, I just, and same with Poitras, right? Like, obviously, we don't want Poitras stapled to the glass like a bug. But like, you said it last week, and I agreed with you on this. Like, what if he was in the top 6? What if he was down the middle? I don't know. Something.
Right.
Something to try to spark something. So, interesting stuff.
I just feel like something needs to happen there in terms of getting something going there. Like I said, like, when Poitras was, had goals in 7 straight games, like, let him marinate, get past the new year. I think you have to call him up before this, the schedule really starts ramping up here and see what you have. Because if he can carry over at least some of what he's done down in Providence, again, what have we said for, I think it's like 7 weeks running now, Evan, of where this team would be with another goal or 2 a game. Like, and it's not just me, like, every single game. Like, what if this team was averaging 3.6 goals per game instead of 2.6? But, like, the timely, scoring, getting that goal to get you back into a game, as you saw with the game on Tuesday. Like, this team has been so many games where they've come just short off of the lack of scoring, both at 5-on-5 and the power play. And I think a guy like Poitras and maybe even a guy like Lysell can give you that extra punch you need right now.
Yeah, especially Poitras. I think Poitras a little bit more of a sure thing. We talked about, would you put him as the first line center with Zacha and Pastrnak, and you'd have, your line of Marchand, Lindholm, and Coyle, and then, you can sort of play with your third line a bit with Geekie, even though Geekie has been producing, as we've said a number of times. But it kind of leads all to this. As we hit January of 2025, it's a new year, like Nuketown 2025. We finally made it. It used to seem so far away, and now it's here. Have you changed your outlook at all for the Bruins entering this year?
I surprisingly, I had to do a new bold predictions for 2025 on Boston.com, so you can read that. Got a lot of predictions, whether it's Gerard Mayo's job status, what have you. The one that I think has drawn the most rage, and you should never check the comments anyway, but I said that the Bruins enter the playoffs as a wild card team, and they still win 2 rounds, mostly because they fight their way through the Metro. I am all for them avoiding the bar fight that is the Atlantic, and I have them just grinding and gutting their way through 2 rounds. Go on to play the Florida Panthers, who finished the year with the best record in the league, and they still lose to them. They lose in the conference finals to the Panthers once again. So
I didn't see that.
That is my prediction.
That came out Thursday, right?
It came out New Year's Day. So
okay, I haven't had a chance to read it yet. That's hysterical.
So I've changed where the Bruins finish, but I still think have them go through the Metro. I think it's like that. I believe I had them playing the Caps, upsetting the Caps, who finished first in the Metro, but not first in the conference. And then they beat the Devils, teams that have some skill, but if you play the game, grind them out, are more physical, which I think they should be more physical. Maybe not the Capitals, that would be a tough game, but tough series. But Devils, if you play to what you should be, I could see the argument there. And I had a few qualifiers in there. I had like the Bruins trading Frederick and a few guys, getting another scoring winger, not trading a first. But I do think that, this team has the ability to be a tough out. And if you're a tough out, then respectfully, I don't know what that means in terms of what you project of what your team could be. It means you could be giving a team hell and losing 6 games in a first round series, or you have a bounce or 2 go your way and the goalie gets hot and you win a round or 2. But I think if you're the Bruins, I'd rather you navigate through the Metro as a wild card team than fight through the Atlantic once again between Florida and Tampa and Toronto. So that's my stance right now.
Yeah, we've become so accustomed to them finishing 1, 2, or 3 in their division that when was the last time the Bruins faced a team that wasn't in their division in the first 2 rounds? It's been like since the old playoff format, I think.
Yeah, since the Red Wings, right? And 13-14, was that
that's it? Right. That was I think that was the last time that happened. And so yeah, I mean, you're right. I think going through the Metro would be their best path. I could see Washington as an easy upset candidate. I don't think I've changed. I mean, I've changed my outlook since the beginning of the year. I had the Bruins, I think, in first end the year. I don't anymore. I still am not convinced enough with this roster, this team. They're not consistent enough. I still don't see them stringing together 4 wins over 7 games against one really good team. So I would say I've changed my outlook since the beginning of the season, but since we've seen this team over 3 months now, I haven't. I'd love to be able to sit here and say I could see them winning 2 rounds. I just can't. And maybe that's why they will. Maybe that's why this team will go deep, is because we don't see them going deep, but I don't. And I also see them finishing 3rd and having to face Florida or Toronto or Tampa first round. And then it's that's a whole nother can of worms. So yeah, I have more of a negative approach. You have a more positive approach. I mean, a lot of
yours is probably more realistic though, Evan. So,
well, yes, but and I guess these views are more relevant now considering it was the beginning of the year. But there were a lot of writers at different people who cover the Bruins who had them as a wild card or a 3rd in the Atlantic team, but would go deeper in the playoffs because they were built more physical and big. I also think those don't count so much anymore. That was sort of basing on guys like Max Jones making an impact and your goalie being better and things like that. And that just hasn't been the case. So I still got them at 3rd or a wild card and still not going that deep in the playoffs. But I like your optimism. I like it. It's good. We need it these
starting
days.
2025 on a high note, right? So
that's right.
We'll see how it goes downhill from there.
Well, we got to clip that because if it's right, that's going to be a hell of a prediction. If it's not right, though, we're not putting that anywhere. Don't put that. Of course. Anyway, Connor, what can the people look forward to from you over in sunny California?
Yes, you can still follow all my stuff over at Boston.com and the Boston Globe. We have covered every step of the way with recaps, features, columns, breakdowns, all that good stuff. So you can read my stuff over there on those 2 sites. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, X, whatever it's called, you can at Conor Ryan _93.
Go do all that. That's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. Poke the Bear. Listeners, have a great rest of your week.